Nearly 3 miles beneath the Atlantic, where darkness is absolute, lies the violently shattered hull of a nuclear submarine lost without warning in 1968, its running lights still lingering eerily on a torn-off sail. The official story said the USS Scorpion vanished quietly with 99 souls, but early deep-sea footage and secret acoustic data revealed a far more catastrophic reality. If the Navy's explanation does not match the evidence, what really happened on the day America's nuclear hunter-killer was destroyed from within? 10,000 feet down, the world changes. Pressure crushes steel as easily as paper, and even the strongest hull becomes fragile in the cold, crushing dark. The first Navy camera, lowered from the USNS Mizar in 1968, drifted through that blackness and caught a glimpse of something that should have been impossible: a submarine sail torn from its body, lying on its side against the silt. The running light, still extended, jutted out as if the ship might surface again, though the rest of the vessel was nowhere in sight. Around it, the seafloor was littered with twisted metal. The hull was not whole but broken into massive sections, each one scattered and battered by forces no sailor could survive. The engine room was folded in on itself, collapsed forward under the sheer weight of the ocean. Where the operations compartment should have been, there was only a tangled fan of debris, wires, and shattered steel. The reactor, once sealed deep within the hull, had been flung outside, resting alone, silent and intact. No flames, no signs of battle, only the aftermath of immense violence at a depth no diver could reach. Here, 3 miles beneath the Atlantic, USS Scorpion became more than a missing ship. It became a question carved into the seafloor, a question about what could tear apart a nuclear submarine so completely, and why the evidence looked nothing like the quiet loss described in official reports. At 18:59 Greenwich Mean Time, on May 22, 1968, underwater microphones stretched across the Atlantic picked up the first sign of disaster. The Navy's Sound Surveillance System, SOSUS, registered a sharp, unnatural sound, a sudden acoustic spike that analysts would later call the initial event. This was not the normal background of ocean life or distant ship traffic. It was the signature of something going wrong inside a submarine, possibly an internal explosion or mechanical failure deep within Scorpion's hull. Seconds later, the hydrophones recorded a rush of lower chaotic frequencies. These matched the sound of water flooding into the vessel at high speed, as if a compartment had been breached and the ocean was pouring in. Within the first minute, the submarine began to descend, passing through 700 feet, the test depth, where the pressure outside equaled nearly 300 pounds per square inch. At this threshold, the hull would have started to groan, metal flexing and straining against the force of the sea. As Scorpion dropped past 1,000 feet, the stress on her structure became overwhelming. SOSUS picked up the deep, wrenching moans of steel under attack, followed by a series of sharp, percussive sounds. These were bulkheads failing in sequence one after another. Finally, at around 1,300 feet, the crush depth for a skipjack-class submarine, the microphones captured a massive, singular, acoustic event. The hull implosion under thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch. The force was so great that compartments collapsed instantly, and the submarine broke apart in less than a second. From the first internal failure to total destruction, the entire sequence lasted about 5 minutes. Each stage of this acoustic record would become the foundation for every investigation that followed, providing a precise, minute-by-minute timeline of Scorpion's final moments beneath the Atlantic. USNS Mizar's mission was defined by numbers, not hope. While the world watched a grand search unfold across the Atlantic, a handful of Navy analysts quietly fed coordinates to the bridge. SOS-US data had already done most of the work. By October 1968, Mizar's crew was steering for a precise box, 12 square miles of abyssal plain, set 400 nautical miles southwest of the Azores. The official story spoke of uncertainty, but ship logs show a grid mapped with methodical confidence. Each pass of the deep tow cameras traced lines over the same small patch of ocean, guided by acoustic triangulation rather than guesswork. The debris field told its own story. Instead of a single wreck, Mizar's cameras revealed 4 massive sections, scattered across nearly 3,000 feet of seafloor. The bow rested upright, a silent marker at the edge of the box. The sail and operations compartment lay torn away, the engine room crushed and telescoped, the reactor vessel flung entirely outside the hull. The expectation of finding an intact submarine vanished with every new frame. For the Mizar crew, the reality was stark. Scorpion had been ripped apart by forces no vessel could withstand. The precision of the search stood in sharp contrast to the chaos below. What began as a public spectacle ended with a grim inventory, each twisted section logged, each piece mapped, the true extent of destruction now undeniable. The stage was set for the next step. Cameras would move even closer to study the damage in detail and search for answers hidden in the wreckage. 17 years after the disaster, the submersible Alvin descended to the Scorpion's grave. Its cameras brought back images sharper than anything from the original search, exposing details that would reshape every theory about what happened. The BOW, where the torpedo room sat, showed hull plating crushed inward, not blasted outward. This single clue challenged every story of an external attack. Metallurgical analysis confirmed the steel had folded under pressure from the outside, as if the ocean itself had finished what a sudden rush of water started inside. 6 torpedo tubes remained sealed, undisturbed. Both Mark 45 nuclear torpedoes were still locked in their tubes, their radioactive cores unbreached and secure. The evidence ruled out a catastrophic weapons detonation. Instead, the damage pattern suggested a different kind of nightmare. Rapid flooding in the forward compartment, possibly triggered by a mechanical failure, or a hot-running torpedo that never left its tube. The engine room, once a fortress of thick steel, was telescoped forward, compressed like an accordion by thousands of pounds of pressure. The propulsion shaft and propeller showed signs of metal fatigue that predated the implosion, hinting at stress or vibration before the final descent. Most striking of all, the S5W nuclear reactor, designed to survive almost anything, had been thrown entirely outside the hull. Yet even here, Radiation surveys found no sign of contamination. The reactor vessel and warheads remained sealed against the ocean. No evidence of torpedo impact craters, no hull scorching, and no foreign debris. The clues pointed away from enemy action and toward a chain of internal failures, set in motion by vulnerabilities that would soon raise uncomfortable questions about maintenance and oversight. On May 17, 1968, orders reached USS Scorpion in the Mediterranean to track a Soviet naval group shadowing the Atlantic approaches. The target was no ordinary convoy. Among the ships was an Echo II-class nuclear submarine and a Canaan-class destroyer, both equipped for anti-submarine warfare and electronic surveillance. For Scorpion's crew, this meant days of silent pursuit, running submerged in hostile waters, recording sonar signatures, and transmitting coded updates back to the Sixth Fleet. These missions pulled the submarine close to adversaries, forcing her to operate at the limits of stealth and machinery. The pressure was constant. Every system had to perform without error. On May 21, 1968 at 1:15 p.m., Scorpion sent her final routine message, reporting all normal. That was the last anyone heard from her. The next scheduled contact never came. Inside the hull, the strain of the mission and the demands of secrecy left no margin for failure. Official answers proved elusive from the start. The overhaul that sent Scorpion back to sea in 1967 was rushed, and the submarine never received the full suite of sub-safe upgrades mandated after the Thresher disaster. Maintenance logs from that critical period vanished from the record, either destroyed or locked behind classification. The original sound surveillance system tapes, which could have provided a definitive acoustic timeline, are missing from Navy archives. When Vice Admiral Bernard Austin convened the Court of Inquiry, families hoped for clarity. Instead, they received a report thick with redactions. References to hot-run torpedoes, deferred safety work, and weapons malfunctions were blacked out, leaving only questions. In 2012, relatives of the lost crew petitioned the Navy to reopen the case. The request was denied without explanation. Decades after the disaster, the most vital pieces of evidence remain out of reach, and the story of Scorpion is still written in gaps and silences. Today, the wreck sits undisturbed, its secrets protected by 3 miles of ocean and decades of classified files. As technology advances, the pressure for answers grows. The true cost of silence is measured not just in lost lives, but in the questions that still echo, unanswered, beneath the waves.